She squinted against the morning sun, the brim of her patrol cap doing little to shield her eyes from the glare bouncing off the asphalt. Norfolk Naval Station was already alive. Supply trucks rumbled toward the docks, Marines jogged in formation along the perimeter road, and a steady stream of vehicles crawled toward the main gate. Private First Class Emma stood post. To most soldiers, gate duty was the definition of monotony. You checked IDs, waved cars through, repeated the same greetings until your throat was raw. Long hours, same routine, same view. Her called it babysitting with a rifle. But Emma never saw it that way. The gate meant something different to her. Responsibility. The line where the outside world ended and the Navy's most vital assets began. Whoever passed through wasn't just entering a base, they were stepping into a guarded sanctuary. Inside were classified operations, billion-dollar equipment, and thousands of men and women who trusted that line would hold. That thought kept her spine straight, eyes alert, tone crisp. "Next vehicle," she called, stepping forward. The pickup rolled into position. A petty officer with salt and pepper hair leaned out the window, handing over his ID. Emma scanned it in one practiced motion. Photo matched, security strip intact, expiration date good. She returned it with a polite nod. "You're good to go, sir." "Thank you, Private," the man replied, easing the truck forward. Emma shifted on her boots, the pavement hot even in the early hour. August humidity clung to her like a second skin, sweat sliding down her neck and soaking into her undershirt. She resisted the urge to wipe her brow. Discipline, even in discomfort, maintained bearing. Nearby, two Marines weren't as rigid. Their laughter cut across the line of cars. Jokes about last night's bar crawl, complaints about the heat, mock groans about how nothing ever happens at this stupid gate. Emma tuned them out. She had learned early in training, focus was everything. When instructors barked commands, when the drill field was chaos, the ones who thrived weren't the loudest or strongest. They were the ones who locked in, tuned out, executed every order with precision. That mindset carried her through basic. It carried her now. Another ID, another face, another nod. The rhythm of it created a lulling pattern, boredom creeping like an enemy probing for weakness. To fight it, she created rituals. Straightened shoulders after every third vehicle. Shift weight only once each half hour. Recite general orders silently when her mind drifted. She wasn't here to coast, she was here to earn respect. But sometimes she wondered if anyone noticed. That thought stung more than she admitted. She had enlisted with a fire in her chest, eager to prove herself. Yet here she was, weeks into Norfolk, still standing post at the gate. Others rotated through secure facilities, shadowed officers, handled logistics. She was the rookie on babysitting duty. Maybe her superiors doubted her. Maybe this was just the fate of a newcomer. Next vehicle. The sedan rolled forward. A civilian contractor leaned out, phone in hand, glancing down at the screen as he offered credentials. Emma narrowed her eyes. "Sir, I'll need you to put the phone down while I verify," she said firmly. The man sighed, but she scanned the card, confirmed access, handed it back with clipped precision. "Thank you." It lasted less than 30 seconds, but Emma's pulse quickened. Complacency was the enemy. Slipping once wasn't an option. Hours dragged on. The sun climbed higher, baking the asphalt. Her throat dry, stomach hollow, but she stood rooted in place. She thought of her father, a retired army sergeant. His voice still echoed in her head. Respect is built when no one is watching. Do the small things right, and the big things will follow. She repeated the mantra with every ID checked, every salute rendered. And then it happened. It began with a hum of anticipation. At the end of the line, a black SUV appeared. Tinted windows reflected harsh sunlight. Its presence cut through monotony. The Marines nearby straightened instantly, their casual talk dying mid-sentence. Emma's instincts sharpened. Her grip tightened on her clipboard as the SUV rolled closer. Whoever was inside, he mattered. The window slid down. A man in his 40s sat behind the wheel, close-cropped hair, jawline carved from granite, eyes that radiated quiet authority. His uniform was immaculate, chest ribbons lined with the weight of past battles. He extended his ID. Her eyes flicked down. Commander James. Her stomach flipped. She knew the name. Everyone did. Not just another officer. The commander. A decorated Navy SEAL. Stories of missions whispered in barracks. Men pulled out of fire against impossible odds. Scars hidden beneath the composed exterior. His presence alone commanded silence. Emma's fingers trembled before she forced them steady. She scanned the ID with flawless precision, checked holograms, expiration date, foe. Procedure, she reminded herself. Protocol is protocol. She returned the card. Thank you, sir. Didn't drive on. He studied her, eyes weighing posture, tone, the way she hadn't let nerves bend protocol. She swallowed hard, refusing to falter, stance locked, chin high. Behind her, she sensed the Marines shifting, bracing for something unusual. And then it happened. The SUV door opened. Boots struck pavement with a heavy thud. The ripple spread instantly. Marines fell silent. Contractors froze. Even the line of vehicles seemed to pause in collective anticipation. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. Commanders didn't get out of their cars at the gate, not for anyone. Yet here he was, striding toward her. The world narrowed to his footsteps. Engines idling, cicadas droning, all sounds dimmed until the only thing she could hear was the sharp cadence of his boots. Her lungs constricted. She had been trained to stand tall under pressure, but this wasn't a drill sergeant. This was him. "Sir," she said cautiously, voice steady despite the thunder in her chest. Stopped directly in front of her. His steel blue eyes locked onto hers, silent, measuring. And then he lifted his hand. Crisp, deliberate, a salute. For a moment she thought she was hallucinating. Heat stroke, the relentless August sun, because this wasn't real. A decorated SEAL commander, saluting a 21-year-old private at the gate. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She snapped into position, returning the salute with flawless precision. Air seemed to shiver. Marines stiffened, eyes wide. A petty officer whispered, "Did he just?" before another hushed him with an elbow. The salute lingered, not casual, not token, a deliberate acknowledgement. When finally lowered his hand, the respect in the gesture hung heavy in the air. Emma's heart pounded. She wanted to ask why, but her throat locked. Soldiers didn't question commanders, yet the thought burned inside her. What did he see in me? Gave the smallest nod, almost imperceptible. Then he turned back, climbed into the SUV, and drove forward. The silence shattered. "Holy hell," a Marine muttered. "I've been here 6 years," another whispered. "Never seen that before." Emma kept her eyes forward, refusing to let composure crack. Inside, thoughts swirled like a storm. By evening, whispers had spread across the base. In the chow hall, soldiers leaned over trays, voices hushed. "You hear about the gate?" "Yeah," saluted a private. "No way." "I swear, half the checkpoint saw it." The rumor moved faster than she could. By the time she walked the corridors, she felt eyes following her. Soldiers nudging each other, murmuring as she passed. She hated it, the attention, the spotlight. She hadn't done anything heroic, she had just done her job. That night back in the barracks, her roommate grinned from her bunk. "You're famous," Specialist Torres teased, tossing a rolled-up sock across the room. Private, the woman who made salute. "Stop," Emma muttered, unlacing boots. "I'm serious," Torres laughed. "Do you know how many people would kill for that moment? You'll be a legend in training stories by next month." Emma shook her head. "I don't even know why he did it." Maybe because you didn't faint. Emma smirked despite herself, but unease lingered. She wasn't chasing recognition. She wanted respect, but respect earned through steady service, not some unexplained gesture that now defined her. Still, she couldn't stop replaying it in her mind. The weight of it, the deliberateness, his eyes locking with hers. There was meaning in it, she just didn't know what. The next morning, she found out the salute wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Why had he saluted her? Emma asked herself the same question all night. She lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling, the faint hum of the barracks air conditioner rattling in the background. The salute replayed endlessly, his eyes, his hand, the silence that fell across the gate. By dawn, she still didn't have an answer. But someone else did. Private, Staff Sergeant Daniels said the next morning, arms crossed in his office doorway. His tone was flat, unreadable. "Commander has requested you." Emma blinked. "Requested me, Sergeant." Daniels' jaw flexed. "Personally, for temporary detail. Don't ask me why. I don't know and I don't care. But when a SEAL commander makes a request, you don't say no. You'll report to Building 12 at 800 tomorrow." Her stomach dropped. Building 12, the restricted compound. The place privates weren't even supposed to glance at too long. "Yes, Sergeant," she managed, though her voice carried a tremor. Daniels narrowed his eyes. "Don't screw this up. You've been given a rare opportunity. Prove the man right, whatever he sees in you." Emma saluted, turned, and left the office on legs that felt like stone. That night Tors noticed her silence. "You're quiet," her roommate said softly in the dark. Emma hesitated. "What if I don't belong there?" Tors rolled over. "Belonging isn't about rank, it's about showing up, doing the job better than anyone else." That's what he saw, that's why he saluted. Emma lay still, the words sinking in. At dawn, she marched toward Building 12. The air carried the faint salt of the harbor, the base stirring awake behind her. Her boots struck pavement in rhythm with her racing pulse. The building loomed, squat, windowless, radiating secrecy. She paused at the checkpoint. A Navy master-at-arms scanned her orders with a skeptical brow, as though doubting a private could possibly belong here. "You're cleared," he said flatly, handing back the paper. "Follow the hallway, wait until you're called." Inside, the air was cool, humming with fluorescent lights. The hall smelled faintly of coffee and oiled metal. Closed doors bore coded numbers and restricted access signs. Emma reached the waiting room. Empty chairs lined the walls. A clock ticked steadily, each second dragging like an hour. She folded her hands in her lap, forcing herself to breathe slow, measured. At last the door opened. "Private," a young lieutenant said, voice clipped. She stood instantly, shoulders square. He gestured, no words, just a flick of his hand. Emma followed down another corridor, then into an office radiating quiet power. Commander stood behind the desk. This time no dress uniform, fatigues, sleeves rolled, scar-lined forearms visible. His posture relaxed, but his presence filled the room like a storm. He looked up from a file, eyes sharp. "Private." "Sir," she replied, snapping a salute. He returned it, smaller than the one at the gate, but still deliberate. He leaned back, studying her in silence until her muscles ached. Then, "Do you know why you're here?" Emma swallowed. "No, sir." He nodded once, approving her honesty. "I watched you yesterday. Most privates treat gate duty like punishment. They slouch. They cut corners, you didn't." Her throat tightened. "It's my post, sir. I take it seriously." "That's why I saluted." The words hit her like a jolt. She had replayed the moment 100 times, searching for meaning. Now it was laid bare. "Respect isn't given by rank," continued, his voice gravel. "It's earned in the way you carry yourself when no one's watching. You stood like a soldier. You held your ground. That deserves recognition." Emma wanted to speak, to thank him, but her voice caught. Leaned forward. But a salute is only the beginning. I want to see if discipline at a gate carries into harder places. Her heart lurched. You'll assist my staff, clerical work, scheduling, whatever is needed, but don't misunderstand. His eyes hardened. This isn't busy work. Mistakes here don't cost embarrassment. They cost lives. The weight pressed down like stone. Emma straightened. Understood, sir. Nodded. Report here daily at 700. Dismissed. She saluted, turned, and left, heart hammering, mind reeling. The next days blurred into a storm. Her new post, a cramped desk outside the operations wing. Radios crackled with coded chatter. Officers strode past with files clutched tight. Whiteboards brimmed with cryptic mission outlines. Her task seemed simple. Log entries, update schedules, deliver briefings between offices. But she quickly realized the stakes. One wrong digit could scramble an operation. One missed signature could delay a deployment. She worked with painstaking care, every pen stroke deliberate, every handoff crisp. Rarely spoke to her, but his shadow was constant, passing her desk daily, glancing at her work with an unreadable expression, never praising, never scolding, just watching. That silence was worse than shouting. Others noticed too. One petty officer leaned over her desk, voice low. Word is the commander hand-picked you. Don't screw it up. Emma forced a polite nod, though the words stung. She hadn't asked for this, but she would not fail. Late one evening, long after most had gone, Emma's eyes burned from hours of logs. She spotted an inconsistency. A mission time listed as 2300 in one file, 200 in another. Her pulse spiked. Ignore it and no one might notice. But if the wrong time went forward, it could unravel everything. She rose, file in hand, and approached his office. The door stood ajar, lamplight spilling across the floor. "Sir," she said, stepping in, saluting. "There's a discrepancy in mission timing. I didn't want to assume which was correct." Scanned the papers silently. His eyes flicked to hers. "You caught this?" "Yes, sir." A pause. Silence stretched until her lungs burned. Then, just barely, his mouth curved. "Good eye." 2 words, barely more than a grunt. But they lit a fire in her chest. "Go get some rest, you'll need it." Walking back to the barracks, her steps felt lighter. Not because she had been praised. It wasn't about that. It was because she had proven, if only for a moment, that she belonged here. That her discipline wasn't confined to the gate. It could carry weight even in the shadowed halls of Building 12. She hadn't broken. For the first time since enlisting, Emma felt something more than duty. She felt purpose. Why were they whispering? Emma felt it everywhere she went, eyes on her in the chow hall, murmurs in corridors, silence that fell when she stepped into a room. The salute had been a spark, but now it was wildfire. By the end of her first week in Building 12, her name was on everyone's tongue. Not officially, never officially, but in rumor, in hushed conversations traded over coffee or muttered in the barracks. The commander saluted her first. "Never seen anything like it." "She's just a private, what's so special?" Emma hated it. She hadn't asked for this spotlight. She hadn't done anything heroic. She had just stood her post. But the salute had marked her. And now the base was watching. Tors, of course, found it hilarious. One evening in the barracks, she waved her phone with a grin. "You're trending." Emma frowned. "What?" Tors flipped the screen, a group chat full of memes. One showed a commander saluting a traffic cone labeled private. Another read, "Respect isn't earned, it's inherited." Emma groaned. "This is ridiculous." "No," Tors chuckled. "This is power. Do you realize how rare it is for a private to be talked about at all? Most of us are ghosts until deployment." "I don't want to be talked about," Emma muttered, tugging at her boots. "You don't get to choose that now," Tors said, tossing her phone aside. "He saluted you. That changes everything." Emma lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She remembered the weight of his eyes, the deliberateness of the gesture. It had felt personal, meaningful, but the gossip cheapened it, turned it into a punchline. She wanted respect, not fame, and respect, she knew, wasn't given in memes or rumors. It was earned in silence, in discipline. 2 days later, Daniel summoned her again. His voice was rough as gravel, his expression unreadable. "You've been on detail a week now. No complaints so far." "Thank you, Sergeant." He leaned forward, lacing his fingers. "Listen carefully. You're walking a fine line. The commander sees something in you, don't ask me what, but the rest of the base, they don't like it. They don't like a private being singled out, especially by him." Emma's stomach tightened. "I didn't ask for this, Sergeant." "I know, but perception is reality. Some will think you're special, some will think you're a fluke, and some will want to see you fail just to prove a point." Her chest nodded. "What should I do?" Daniel's eyes softened just for a moment. "Do your job, do it better than anyone else. That's the only way through." Emma nodded, throat dry. "Yes, Sergeant." But the words lingered like a shadow. "Some will want you to fail." The weight grew heavier in Building 12. Officers who once passed her without notice now studied her closely. Narrowed eyes, clipped tones, double checks on every report she delivered. It wasn't hostility, not yet, something colder, skepticism. She responded with perfection. Every report double-checked, every memo delivered ahead of schedule, every salute crisp. She became invisible in the best way, efficient, reliable, flawless. But the whispers followed her. One afternoon, she overheard two staffers in the hallway. "Why her?" one asked. "Because sees potential," the other replied. "Or because he's making a point. You salute a private, you send a message. Maybe it's not about her at all." The words stung more than she wanted to admit. What if they were right? What if she wasn't chosen for who she was, but for what she represented? That night, lying in her bunk, she replayed the salute again. The precision of his hand, the weight of his stare. No, it hadn't been symbolic, it had been personal. She refused to believe otherwise. One afternoon, she carried a folder into his office. He stood over a map scattered with red markers, his forearms and taut. He looked up, eyes sharp. "On time," he said simply, taking the folder. "Yes, sir." She hesitated at the door, pulse racing, then gathering courage. "Sir, may I ask something?" His brow lifted. "Go ahead." "Why me?" The words barely escaped her throat. Silence. Studied her, then set the folder aside. "Because discipline is rare," he said finally. His voice was low, even. "Anyone can shine when the stakes are high, but only a few stand tall when no one's watching. You did." Her throat tightened. "Don't waste it," he added. Emma nodded, too choked to reply. The salute wasn't a rumor anymore. It was a catalyst, a turning point, and she could feel it reshaping her path every time she put on her uniform, every time she sat at her desk, every time skeptical eyes followed her down the hall. She hadn't asked for this journey, but it was hers now. And deep down, a flicker of determination burned brighter than fear. If they were watching, she would give them something worth watching. What was one mistake worth? Emma asked herself that question every day now. Not out loud, never out loud, but silently with every line of data every schedule she adjusted, every set of coordinates she. In Building 12, mistakes weren't red marks on a page. They were helicopters landing in the wrong valley, supply drops vanishing into enemy hands, teams left waiting in the dark, unarmed and alone. Every folder she touched carried weight. Her mornings began before dawn, up before most, lacing boots in silence. A quick bite in the chow hall, then the walk through humid Virginia air. By 700, she was at her desk outside Commander's office. Her tasks seemed small, typing schedules, organizing briefings, logging changes. But she knew better now. A shift in flight time wasn't just a number, it rerouted an entire deployment. A typo in a meeting order could mean one commander was briefed too late. Tiny ripples, catastrophic consequences. And noticed everything. He never hovered, never scolded, but his eyes tracked details like a hawk. Sometimes he nodded faintly when her files were aligned with perfect precision. Sometimes he said nothing at all. That silence kept her sharp. But not everyone saw it that way. She overheard voices one afternoon as she delivered a folder to the operations wing. "Why is she here?" one officer muttered. "Hand-picked her," another answered. "She's a private," the first scoffed. "We've got staff with years of experience, yet he trusts her." "You think that's an accident?" Emma's chest tightened. She turned quickly down the hallway before they saw her. The doubt gnawed at her. Was she here because she'd earned it, or because was making a point? Later that week the test came. She was reviewing a logistics memo when her pen froze. Two sets of coordinates, nearly identical but not quite. A few digits off. To the untrained eye it was nothing, but she had learned to look twice. One grid marked a safe valley. The other marked a ridge line crawling with insurgent activity. Her pulse quickened. She could ignore it, pass it along. No one would blame her, it wasn't her report. But what if the wrong one went forward? The thought made her stomach twist. She stood, memo in hand, and knocked on's door. "Enter." He was at his desk, sleeves rolled, map spread before him. "Sir," she said, saluting quickly, "I found a discrepancy in the logistics memo. I wasn't sure which was correct." Took the paper, scanning it in silence. "You caught this?" "Yes, sir." He set the file down, leaned back, his eyes on hers. The silence stretched until she thought she'd made a mistake. Her chest ached with the weight of it. Then finally, "Good," most would have passed it along without question. Her lungs released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That night, lying in her bunk, she replayed his words. Good, 2 syllables, but from him it was heavier than metals. Over time, the pattern repeated. Small details slipped across her desk. A flight manifest missing a name. A supply request with mismatched codes. A meeting note listing the wrong time zone. Each one a hidden test. Each one a chance to fail quietly, invisibly. Each one she caught, corrected, flagged. Never praised, never explained. But sometimes in the corner of his mouth a hint of approval flickered. Until one evening, he approached her desk himself. "You know why these small things matter?" he asked. His voice was low, even. Emma straightened. "Because small mistakes lead to bigger ones, sir." He shook his head slightly. "Because lives ride on them. A miswritten coordinate isn't just ink. It's a helicopter in the wrong valley. It's a team waiting in the dark with no resupply. Discipline in detail is discipline in battle." Emma's throat tightened. "Yes, sir." He studied her for a moment longer. "Don't ever forget that." The words carved themselves into her chest. Word of her growing role spread through the base. Some respected her. Some resented her. She felt it in glances, in hushed conversations that ended when she walked into the room. But she noticed something else. The younger ones, the new privates, the recruits fresh from training, looked at her differently. Not with envy, with hope. She caught one whispering in the mess line, "That's her, the one he saluted." It embarrassed her, but it also lit a fire. If they were watching, she wanted to be worthy of it. One late night, as she organized files, she realized she hadn't been back to the gate in weeks. She missed it, oddly enough. The hum of cars, the rhythm of IDs, the silent tests of vigilance. The gate had been her first battlefield. Standing alone, invisible, unrecognized. That was where she'd learned the lessons that carried her now. And she promised herself she would never forget it. The office was quiet after hours. Only the hum of computers, the scratch of her pen. The bass outside had settled into its nighttime rhythm, boots fatting down hallways, doors clicking shut. Then the door opened behind her. She straightened instinctively as stepped out. Fatigues, sleeves rolled high, his expression unreadable. "You're still here," he said. "Yes, sir," Emma replied quickly. He studied her a moment, then motioned, "Come in." His office was sparse. Maps pinned to corkboards, medals framed on one wall, folders stacked in neat, deliberate piles. He leaned against his desk, arms folded, eyes fixed on her. "Do you know why I saluted you that day at the gate?" The question hit her harder than she expected. It was the one she had replayed endlessly, the one whispered in hallways and barracks. And now he was asking her directly. "No, sir," she admitted, "I've wondered." His gaze sharpened. "Most people think respect comes from rank. They're wrong. Rank is just an assignment. Respect is earned in the moments when no one's looking." Emma sat very still, heart pounding. "You stood at that gate with more discipline than I've seen in men twice your age and rank. You weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't performing. You just did the job with precision like it mattered, because it does matter." He paused, letting the weight sink in. "That's why I saluted you. Not because of who you are on paper, but because of how you carried yourself when you thought no one noticed." Her throat tightened. She whispered, "Thank you, sir." The words felt small compared to the weight of what he had given her. His voice dropped lower. "Do you know how many times I've seen good men die because of one careless mistake, a name misspelled, a digit swapped, tiny things, and then teams stranded, missions lost, blood spilled?" His tone was calm, but the fury underneath was clear. Discipline isn't about shining boots or snapping to attention. Discipline is knowing every detail could mean life or death for someone else. Emma nodded, chest heavy. She thought of the errors she had caught, the ones she had corrected. For the first time, she understood the true stakes. "Sir," she asked carefully, "why tell me this?" His eyes softened barely. "Because you already understand it, even if you don't realize it yet. You proved it at the gate. You've proved it every day since. My job is to sharpen it, not smother it." Emma sat, a weight lifting even as another settled in its place. For so long she had worried she was a symbol, a pawn, proof of a point, but now she saw it differently. He wasn't using her. He was testing her, teaching her. And the test wasn't over. Why did their eyes feel sharper now? Emma had grown used to glances, curious ones, skeptical ones. But after that late-night conversation with Commander, something shifted. It was as if every soldier, every officer in Building 12 had decided to look closer, to weigh her every move. The whispers hadn't vanished. If anything, they'd grown. "She's just the gate girl. This project, she'll crack, watch." Emma forced herself not to react. She kept her reports flawless, her memos early, her posture unshakable. But inside, the pressure coiled with every step down the hallway. She remembered Staff Sergeant Daniels' warning. "Some will want to see you fail just to prove a point." He'd been right. But she refused to give them that satisfaction. So she doubled her efforts. Each report she touched was checked and rechecked. Each set of coordinates, each time-stamp aligned, each signature confirmed. Where others saw paperwork, she saw lives hanging in the balance. Still, resentment simmered. One afternoon, as she delivered a folder, she caught the tail end of a conversation. "Why does he even keep her around?" a lieutenant muttered. "She's just a private." "She's a message," another replied. "If he salutes a private, he's telling us no one is above scrutiny, no one coasts." Emma's chest tightened. She walked past as if she hadn't heard. But the words stayed with her. Was she here because of who she was, or because of what she represented? That night in the barracks, she polished her boots under dim light. Torres leaned over her bunk, amused. Again, you're obsessed. Not obsessed, Emma said, brushing steadily. Disciplined. Same thing, Torres teased. But Emma only smiled faintly, hearing's voice echo. Discipline isn't about the shine. It's about the life it protects. It steadied her, but doubt still gnawed at the edges. Her next test came when chaos hit Building 12. A last-minute personnel change threw the operations wing into disorder. Rooms double-booked, timelines impossible. Officers muttered curses, staff scrambled with overlapping schedules. Emma felt the storm pulling at her. Papers slammed down, voices rising, the whole operation threatening to collapse under the weight of disorganization. She took a breath and pulled out her checklist. Room allocations first. Shift them. Cross-check names with available times. Notify officers directly, clear and precise. Then timelines. Rebuild the schedule around fixed points. Layer the changes in order of urgency. She moved quickly, her pen flying, her voice firm but calm as she relayed updates. By the time entered, the chaos had quieted. The office hummed with controlled rhythm. He scanned the room. His eyes found hers, a single nod. No words. But she understood. That night she reflected on it in silence. The salute at the gate had been a spark, but now it was responsibility. Every detail mattered. Every adjustment shaped missions bigger than herself. And others were watching. Younger privates lingered near her desk, pretending to ask questions but really observing. Their eyes wide, their posture subtly mimicking hers. One morning, a recruit named Daniels, a 19-year-old from North Carolina, hovered nervously. "Private," he stammered, I heard you were the one saluted." Emma looked up, expression carefully neutral. "Yes." "Wow," he whispered, "I mean that's respect." "Respect isn't given by rank," Emma said, finishing the thought for him. "It's earned by how you carry yourself when no one's looking. That's all it was." He shifted on his feet. "I guess I've been slacking at the gate myself." "Then start today," Emma said firmly. "Discipline is cumulative. It builds over time. Nobody notices the small things until they matter." His jaw tightened with new resolve. He nodded, and she realized she had just passed on's lesson, almost word for word. It struck her. Influence wasn't about speeches or medals. It was about the quiet shaping of others through example. But influence wasn't universally welcomed. Some officers still regarded her with thinly veiled resentment. She overheard one scoff. "She's getting too much attention. A private shouldn't be influencing operations." Another replied, "Don't forget Commander chose her. We follow him, not gossip." Emma didn't respond. She kept working. Her job wasn't to convince them. Her job was to be disciplined. But even noticed the tension. One evening he approached her desk, voice quiet but steady. "I've noticed how others look at you," he said. "Some with respect, some with skepticism, some with resentment." "Yes, sir," Emma replied. "Good," said. "If you can survive that, you can survive anything. Leadership isn't about rank or medals. It's about influence. And influence is earned through action, not words." Emma nodded, absorbing the weight of it. She realized then, the salute had never been a reward. It was a test, a responsibility, a chance to prove that even a private standing tall could shape the culture of a unit. A week later, she was rotated back to the gate for inspection duty. At first, soldiers were stunned to see her there, out from Building 12. But Emma didn't flinch. She scanned IDs with the same meticulous care as always, stood tall in the same sun, treated every car like it carried the most valuable cargo in the world. Younger privates nearby straightened their posture, copying her stance, her methodical movements. By evening, she realized the gate had become something new, no longer monotony, no longer punishment. A classroom. Every salute she returned, every ID she checked with precision, it was a lesson, not just for her, for anyone watching. That night, as she lay in her bunk, she thought about it. The commander's salute had been a spark, Building 12 had been fire, and now she was something more than the girl at the gate. She was an example. The weight of it was heavy, but for the first time it felt right. How much weight could one pair of shoulders carry? Emma wasn't sure anymore. Each day in Building 12 felt heavier, not from the paperwork itself, but from the consequences threaded through every page she touched. Schedules, manifests, maps on the surface, they looked ordinary. But beneath the ink were men's lives, mission success, and the weight of trust she hadn't asked for but now bore. Sharpen that weight with every word. He didn't praise often, didn't scold. He tested. He set traps in silence, small inconsistencies left in her path like a wrong digit here, a mismatched time zone there. She learned quickly if she didn't catch them, no one else would. And if no one else did, the price wasn't embarrassment. It was failure measured in body bags. One evening, he called her into his office. Maps layered the walls, pins and markers spread across valleys and cities half a world away. He gestured to one set of coordinates. "Tell me what's wrong," he said. Emma leaned in. Her eyes scanned the numbers. At first, nothing. Then a single digit was off, barely noticeable. Her chest tightened. "Sir, this would put the drop 4 miles east, into enemy territory." Nodded, expression unreadable. "And what would that mean?" She hesitated. "A team without resupply, maybe an ambush." His voice dropped lower. "Not maybe, definitely. 4 miles east and they'd never come home." The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. Emma swallowed hard. She understood now. Every file she handled wasn't just paper. It was a battlefield disguised in ink. "Discipline in detail is discipline in battle," said again. His tone was steady, but the scars in his voice told her it wasn't theory. It was memory. She left his office that night shaken, and sharper than ever. But sharpness came with cost. The more flawless she became, the more the resentment grew. Skeptics whispered louder now, no longer bothering to lower their voices when she passed. "She's making us look bad. She thinks she's one of them. She's not, she's just the gate girl." Emma clenched her jaw and kept walking. She told herself the only answer was consistency, not words, not arguments, just action. But doubt still slipped in during the quiet moments. Alone in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, she wondered, was she truly worthy, or just a pawn in someone else's lesson? The next week, the answer was tested. A mission briefing spiraled into near disaster. A last-minute change to insertion points had left 2 SEAL teams preparing for the same air corridor. Radios buzzed with confusion, staff scrambled, and the clock ticked mercilessly toward H-hour. Emma caught the overlap first. Her heart jolted. She pushed through the crowd, voice firm but steady. "Sir, these 2 routes intersect, at the same time, same altitude." The officer froze. He snatched the papers from her hand, scanning quickly. A string of curses left his lips. "She's right." The room exploded into motion. Orders barked. Maps redrawn. Corrections relayed to pilots in real time. When the chaos cleared, the mission rolled out safely. Emma stood in the corner, chest heaving unseen. But not by everyone. His eyes found hers across the room. He gave a faint nod, barely perceptible but heavy with meaning. Later, as the office emptied, she lingered at her desk. Her hands trembled as she stacked papers into neat piles. Approached. "You caught it," he said quietly. "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice steadier than her hands. "Do you know what would have happened if you had?" She swallowed. "Collision, sir, midair." His jaw tightened. 2 birds down, 16 men dead because someone the wrong line. The weight of it slammed into her chest. He studied her, eyes sharp but softer than usual. "That's why I keep testing you, to see if you see it before it's too late." Emma nodded, words stuck in her throat. "You did today," he said. Remember that when the whispers get loud, they don't know what you're carrying. She lay awake that night, the words echoing. They don't know what you're carrying. No, they didn't, and they never would. That was the burden. Discipline meant carrying weight without applause, without defense, without recognition. And maybe that was the point. The next morning she returned to her desk sharper, quieter, more determined. Each task became sacred. Each number, each digit, each line a soldier's breath. The resentment didn't stop. Officers still scoffed, staff still muttered. But younger privates noticed. They straightened when they passed her desk, watched the way she worked, the way she carried herself. One whispered to another in the chow line, "That's her, the one who caught the mistake yesterday, saved the mission." Emma overheard, cheeks burning. She didn't want fame. She wanted quiet respect. But maybe the two weren't always separate. A few days later, tested her again, this time directly. He dropped a folder on her desk. "Don't ask questions, just find the flaw." Emma flipped through. It was a standard logistics packet. Flight schedules, manifests, supply lists. Everything looked right. She read again, slower. Then she saw it. One supply weight didn't match the manifest total. A small discrepancy, 20 pounds. Nothing unless it was a weapon or medical kit. She looked up. "Sir, the numbers don't add." His eyes narrowed. "And if we missed it?" The load would be imbalanced. Chopper might not clear altitude. He nodded once. "Exactly." He didn't smile, didn't praise, but he didn't need to. She had passed again. That evening, Tors found her still awake in the barracks, polishing boots with almost obsessive focus. "You're gonna wear those things down to leather dust," Tors joked. Emma glanced up, faint smile on her lips. "Not obsessed, disciplined." Tors chuckled, climbing into her bunk. "You keep saying that like there's a difference." Emma returned to her boots, brush steady. "There is." She heard his voice again in her head. Discipline isn't about the shine. It's about the life it protects. For the first time since the salute, she no longer felt like a fraud. No longer the gate girl. She felt like a soldier with purpose. And for Emma, that purpose was enough. When had they started looking at her that way? Emma noticed it more and more. The younger ones, the privates fresh from training, the recruits still figuring out how to lace their boots without fumbling, they hovered near her desk, lingered a little longer at the gate when she rotated back, their eyes following her with something she didn't quite recognize at first. Not envy, not skepticism. Hope. At first, it unsettled her. She didn't want followers. She wasn't an officer. She wasn't anyone special. She was just a private who had been saluted once. But still they watched. One morning, as she sorted files outside Building 12, a nervous recruit approached, shifting awkwardly on his feet. "Private." Emma looked up, keeping her tone neutral. "Yes." "I just wanted to ask." He hesitated, cheeks red. "How do you stay like that, calm, focused, respected?" Emma studied him. He couldn't have been more than 19. She remembered being that age, terrified of making a mistake, desperate to prove herself, drowning in doubt. She leaned back, choosing her words carefully. "Discipline isn't a show," she said softly. "It's not about standing tall only when someone's watching. It's about doing the job right every single time, even when it feels like no one cares." The recruit nodded slowly, absorbing it. "So, it's practice." "It's commitment," Emma corrected gently. "You carry it into every task, big or small. That's how respect is earned." He straightened, a flicker of resolve in his eyes. "Thank you, Private." She watched him walk away, realizing she had just passed on words again. The lesson didn't stop with her. It rippled outward. But not everyone welcomed that ripple. Some officers' resentment had sharpened into open disdain. "She's influencing them," one whispered in the hallway, privates looking up to her like she's a leader. "She's not, she's a distraction," another replied. Emma heard them, of course. She always heard them, but she refused to let it shake her. Her answer was the same as always: consistency. Reports flawless, schedules precise, every detail checked, double-checked, signed without error. Her silence became its own defense. But the tension grew heavier. One afternoon, during a staff briefing, Emma stood at the edge of the room with her files ready. She felt eyes on her, sharp, skeptical. One lieutenant leaned close to another and muttered, not quietly enough, "She's just the gate girl. Why is she even here?" Emma stiffened. Her ears burned, but she kept her gaze forward. She wouldn't flinch. When the briefing ended, she delivered the files with crisp precision, saluted, and walked out. Her hands trembled the moment she was alone in the hallway. It wasn't easy, being doubted, being resented, carrying responsibility she hadn't asked for. That night in the barracks, Tors caught her staring at the ceiling again. "You ever gonna stop thinking?" Tors asked with a smirk. Emma sighed. "Do you ever wonder if you belong?" "All the time," Tors admitted. "But you've already proven it. They can whisper all they want. Doesn't change what you've done." Emma wanted to believe that, but doubt lingered like a shadow. The next day, the shadow grew heavier. A sudden scheduling conflict erupted. Two high-level officers had been double-booked for mission planning, and tempers flared. Voices rose, orders collided, the room teetered on chaos. Emma scanned the mess of files, heart pounding. She saw the error instantly. A time had been duplicated in two separate schedules, a simple clerical mistake, but one that threatened to derail an entire mission cycle. She acted without hesitation. "Sir," she said firmly, stepping forward, "the duplication is here. If we shift this briefing 30 minutes, both commanders can meet without overlap." The room froze. All eyes on her. The officers glanced down, scanning. One muttered a curse under his breath. "She's right." His eyes flicked toward her, steady, unreadable. The changes rippled instantly. Voices calmed, the storm smoothed. Within minutes, the crisis was solved. Emma stepped back, silent again, but the weight of the stares lingered, some grudgingly impressed, others colder than ever. Later approached her desk quietly. "You know what you just did?" Emma swallowed. "Fixed a schedule, sir." He shook his head. "You prevented a mission delay, maybe saved lives downrange. You did it under pressure, surrounded by skeptics. That's leadership." Her breath caught. Leadership. The word felt too big for her shoulders. "Don't confuse it with rank," added. "Leadership isn't about stripes, it's about influence. And you've got it now, whether you want it or not." She nodded, throat tight. That night, Emma sat on her bunk polishing her boots again. Tors groaned from across the room. "Still at it? You're relentless." Emma smiled faintly. "Not relentless, responsible." "Sounds like the same thing to me." Emma thought about it. Maybe it was. But responsibility felt heavier, and she was starting to accept that weight. The following week, she returned to the gate for another inspection rotation. This time it felt different. She stood tall, scanning IDs, the sun blazing on her cap, the rhythm of cars flowing steady. Younger privates nearby mirrored her stance, their movements slower but deliberate, trying to copy the precision she carried so naturally. She didn't tell them to. She didn't need to. Influence didn't require words. That evening, as the shift ended, one recruit hesitated before leaving. "Private," he said nervously, "thank you, I've been slacking. Watching how you do this, it changed how I think. Discipline matters." Emma gave a faint smile. "Then start now. Not for me, not for anyone else, for yourself. That's what counts." The recruit nodded, walking off with new resolve. Emma watched him go, the sunset painting the gate in amber light. She realized something then. She wasn't just proving herself anymore. She was shaping others, quietly, steadily, without asking for it. And that, more than recognition, more than gossip, more than salute, was what gave her purpose. The whispers of resentment still stung, but they didn't cut as deep, because she had seen the other side, the flicker of hope in younger eyes, the quiet ripple of discipline spreading outward. For the first time, Emma understood. She wasn't just surviving the weight. She was carrying it. And in carrying it, she was changing the base around her. Why did the air feel so heavy tonight? Emma stood in formation under the floodlights, rows of uniforms stretching out across the parade ground. The night was warm, the air thick, but that wasn't the weight pressing on her chest. It was the eyes. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, watching, waiting. Word had spread. Not gossip this time, not memes in the barracks chat, something different, official. A ceremony. Recognition. And though her name hadn't been announced, she knew. His eyes had given it away earlier that day. Just a flicker. Just enough to confirm what she'd been fearing and hopping all at once. Her palms were damp inside her gloves. Her boots felt heavier than usual. She forced her breathing steady. She remembered the first day at the gate, standing in the same stiff posture, sun burning her neck, invisible to everyone who passed. She had felt small then, forgotten. And now she felt seen, too seen. The ceremony began. The base commander's voice carried over the field. Words about discipline, about sacrifice, about the quiet strength that holds the line when no one is watching. Emma's chest tightened at that phrase, when no one is watching. Because that was where this had started, alone at the gate, no audience, no recognition, just discipline for its own sake. And that had been enough. Until it wasn't just hers anymore. A name was called, not hers. Another soldier stepped forward, received a commendation, applause, salutes. Then another and another. Emma stood still, her heart drumming louder with each name. Finally the words came. Private Emma. The sound was surreal. Her body moved before her mind caught up. She stepped out of formation, boots striking hard against the concrete, spine rigid, eyes forward. She marched to the front, the floodlights blinding, the silence deafening. The base commander spoke, but Emma barely heard. Phrases floated around her. Exemplary discipline, unwavering detail, lives preserved through vigilance. Then a salute given, and a salute earned. Her throat tightened. The commander stepped aside, and there he was. Commander. Facing her. For a moment the world fell silent, just the two of them, just as it had been at the gate. His hand rose, sharp and deliberate. The salute. The same salute that had sparked whispers, doubts, resentment, change. But this time it wasn't in passing, it wasn't a message. It was recognition. Emma's arm rose, her salute crisp, precise, their eyes locked. No words were spoken, none needed. The silence was the meaning. When she lowered her arm, she knew everything had shifted. Not because she had been honored, not because she had been seen, but because she understood now what it all meant. Discipline wasn't about reward, it wasn't about rank, it wasn't about applause. It was about carrying weight in silence. Carrying it so others could live. After the ceremony, soldiers crowded around. Some clapped her on the shoulder, some offered handshakes, some just nodded in quiet respect. Tors found her last, grinning. Look at you, the gate girl turning into a legend. Emma shook her head, faint smile on her lips. Not a legend, just a soldier. Tors smirked. Yeah, but the kind they'll remember. Later in the stillness of her barracks, Emma sat alone on her bunk. The metal felt heavy in her hand. The salute replayed in her mind. She thought of the whispers, the doubt, the resentment. The nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if she belonged. She thought of the recruits who had straightened their posture because of her. The files she had corrected. The missions that had gone right because she had seen what others missed. And she thought of the gate, where it had all begun. She set the metal down. It wasn't the weight that mattered. It was the lesson. Respect isn't in rank, it isn't in medals, it isn't in applause. It's in the quiet moments, in the discipline that no one sees, in the details that seem invisible until they save a life. Emma lay back, staring at the ceiling one last time, the lesson carved into her chest. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.